In this video, I want to talk about how to increase magnesium absorption and optimize your levels. This video will be especially helpful for anyone who has problems taking magnesium supplements or for those where even high doses of magnesium supplements don't seem to help. To start off, let's first talk about a few basics. First of all, how common even is a magnesium deficiency? It is very common, unfortunately, and the main reasons are stress and food processing. When you're in a stressful situation, literally within seconds, your body will excrete some magnesium because magnesium is a calming mineral, and in a stressful situation, your body doesn't want you to be calm. It wants you to be ready to fight or flight. In terms of food processing, most modern processing techniques strip some of the magnesium of the foods in our diet. Just as an example, whole grain products generally have more magnesium than refined grain products. Now, the magnesium RDA is around 420 milligrams per day for men and around 320 milligrams for women. But your actual magnesium needs are very individual. Generally, the more active you are, the more stress you experience, and the higher your intake of processed foods, the higher your magnesium needs. Interestingly, a lot of athletes are also magnesium deficient, even though they're generally very health conscious. That's because magnesium is so important for energy metabolism and muscle activation. This then brings me to increasing and optimizing your magnesium levels. Generally, the best types of foods are green leafy vegetables, whole grains, and nuts and seeds. But they all come with a caveat. Most of them also come with oxalic or phytic acid, which are sometimes referred to as anti-nutrients because they can block the absorption of many minerals in your GI tract. These include magnesium, zinc, and calcium, for example. You can reduce these anti-nutrients by soaking, sprouting, and roasting, for example, but many people aren't aware of this, so they often eat raw grains and therefore think they're absorbing more magnesium than they actually are. That means in basically all cases, people with an existing magnesium deficiency or people who are at risk of developing a magnesium deficiency need to supplement. I explained the basics of proper magnesium supplementation in a different video, but generally your dosage will be between 200 to 500 milligrams per day. Unfortunately, a lot of people have problems taking magnesium supplements, and this is probably also the reason you're watching this video. They get diarrhea, stomach upset, or some nasty side effects that they don't want to have. Usually this is because magnesium that sits too long in the GI tract pulls water into it, which then leads to diarrhea. So it really comes down to your body not being able to absorb the magnesium that you're taking in. Let me now give you a few tips on how to fix this issue. The first thing you want to look at are cofactor deficiencies. If your body isn't able to absorb a nutrient properly, you always first want to ask yourself why this is happening. It might be compensating for an existing deficiency in a cofactor of that nutrient. In the case of magnesium, its main cofactors are calcium, sodium, and potassium. That's because these four electrolytes work together. They need to balance each other and they need to regulate each other. If you're low in one of them, chances are your body doesn't want to absorb the magnesium because it doesn't want to further drive down that cofactor. Now, in theory, it can be any of the three, so it can be calcium, potassium, or sodium. But in most cases, the problem is with calcium, because it's magnesium's direct antagonist. If you increase your magnesium levels, that will decrease your calcium levels. So if your calcium levels are already low, more magnesium will just drive them further, creating more problems. That's why your body doesn't want to absorb any of the magnesium. Now, the topic of calcium can get really complex because you also have the issue of tissue calcification. I explained that in a different video. A potassium deficiency can also theoretically be at play here, because it's very common, just like a magnesium deficiency, but it usually doesn't cause the side effects we talked about earlier. Potassium and magnesium help each other stay in the cell. So if you take a magnesium supplement, chances are you will also retain more potassium. The next cofactor you want to look at is vitamin B6. Vitamin B6 and magnesium also work together because they're so important for energy production. Magnesium is needed to activate ATP, your primary energy currency in the body, and vitamin B6 is needed to release energy from the food you eat. It's very important for the proper digestion of fats, proteins, and carbs. Vitamin B6 deficiencies have been associated with magnesium loss, especially from the cell. And vitamin B6 is also very important for healthy neurotransmitter levels because it's involved in the synthesis of serotonin. So definitely make sure to keep an eye on your vitamin B6 intake if you want to increase magnesium absorption and retention. The last cofactor nutrient you can look at is boron. Boron is not just important for magnesium and calcium uptake, but also for their balance in your body. Now, usually your magnesium problems will not come down to a boron problem, but you can take it into account. It's just something I wanted to mention. Besides cofactor deficiencies, another thing you definitely want to look at are different types of magnesium. Some are just way more prone to generating side effects than others. Now, online, there are thousands of lists of the best and worst types of magnesium. But to be honest, it really comes down to your personal tolerance and preference. For example, it's usually said that magnesium glycinate is the best absorbable form and magnesium oxide is the worst. The problem is that these lists generally base their claims on studies that looked at participants who took different types of supplements and then measured their magnesium blood levels. Magnesium glycinate usually does very well in these studies because it's absorbed very quickly and spikes blood levels very quickly. But what you have to keep in mind is that spiking blood levels very quickly isn't always a good thing because your body doesn't want that much magnesium at any given time in your blood. So it will signal to your kidneys to pee it out. What that means is that magnesium glycinate is often very good at avoiding the side effects we talked about earlier, so diarrhea, which come from too much magnesium sitting for too long in your GI tract. It passes the GI tract very quickly and lands in your blood, but that doesn't necessarily mean it also stays in your body. Oftentimes, you pee out a good chunk of it before it lands in your tissue, so in your cells. Magnesium oxide, on the other hand, which is often referred to as the worst type of magnesium, is digested very slowly. That's why it's so diuretic. But if you tolerate it, it's actually a great form of increasing your tissue level of magnesium because it never really spikes the magnesium in your blood too much, so you pee out only a small fraction of it. I'm not necessarily trying to sell you on magnesium oxide here or talk bad about magnesium glycinate. What I'm trying to say is that it always comes down to your personal situation and how you react to a certain supplement. You generally want to try a variety of magnesium supplements and see which you like best. Of course, you can also take different types of magnesium throughout the day or buy a magnesium complex of several magnesium varieties in one package. One last interesting type of magnesium are ionic magnesium supplements. The idea here is that traditional magnesium supplements are solid compounds. They're minerals that need to dissolve in your digestive system to then release the magnesium ions, which can then be absorbed. Ionic supplements already have the magnesium ions dissolved in them, so they're always liquid. Ionic magnesium supplements are definitely more potent and very helpful for people who have a really hard time absorbing magnesium. It's definitely something I would recommend you try out. My favorite is Remag, which I'm not being paid for to say here. But make sure to not overdose this because even small amounts of ionic magnesium, so a teaspoonful, will already have a lot of magnesium in it. You really want to start with very small amounts and go from there to see how your body reacts to the increased magnesium uptake. The next tip I have for you is to split your magnesium dosage into several smaller dosages that you take throughout the day. I talked about this before, and the idea is that sudden spikes of magnesium in your blood will just get peed out. So you want to avoid those and gradually increase your magnesium uptake throughout the day. I generally take 150 milligrams for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I also like to change up the type of magnesium. So for example, for breakfast, I take magnesium glycinate, and then for lunch, I take magnesium oxide. Now that we talked about the different types of magnesium, we should also talk about transdermal magnesium, which is a controversial subject. Some early research indicated limited or no magnesium uptake through the skin. But today we know this isn't true. Your skin definitely absorbs magnesium, and you can increase your magnesium levels through transdermal magnesium sources. Its advantage is obviously that it bypasses your GI tract, so you don't have the laxative effect. But the disadvantage is that you never know how much you're actually taking in, so dosage can be a problem. Generally, the larger the surface area of your skin that you apply the transdermal magnesium to, and the longer you have it on, the more magnesium you will absorb. This is obvious. What that means is that a 10-minute foot soak will be less effective compared to a 1-hour magnesium bath. For these baths, the type of magnesium will be Epsom salt, so magnesium sulfate, and in magnesium lotions, you will find magnesium chloride. Before I wrap up this video, I want to give you one last optional tip. There's very limited research on it, but some people swear by it, and it's choline citrate together with your magnesium supplement. The idea is that choline and citric acid have negative charges, which balance magnesium's positive charge. This neutralization creates tiny droplets that are taken up by the neutral pores. It is said that way both the magnesium and the choline can enter the cell more effectively and more easily. I haven't verified this, but you can try it out. Choline citrate is a liquid supplement, and you want to take 1 teaspoon of it together with your magnesium supplement. By the way, choline also helps create the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which helps calm you down, which then indirectly lowers your magnesium loss. So it's kind of a win-win. And that's basically it. Those are my tips on how to increase magnesium absorption. I hope you like this video, and I see you in the next one.